Welcome. Welcome, everyone. It's Angelo Robles, and we're live here on a Wednesday night. Now, something that I rarely do, this is my second live of the day. I know that's really bad for LinkedIn algorithms, but I read something, I found it valuable, but I was feeling a response to it that I don't think you hear often in the industry, and henceforth, here I am. Bank of America came out with their family office study, and I absolutely did find it valuable. But that would be boring. So, my perspective after reading it two times is it's the wrong questions. Deconstructing the Bank of America family office study. So, on that note, for the second time today, with my cold, pardon the sniffles and all, and bad algorithms, at least on LinkedIn, by doing two a day, here we go. This will be a comprehensive breakdown. And I know I'm not always the most popular or maybe more so beloved person in the family office world. This will probably add, unfortunately, to that Darth Vader reputation. But with all due respect, shall we begin? First, as noted, a shout out to Bank of America and other banks, UBS and Goldman, also do very solid family office studies. This is a pretty comprehensive one. And again, I appreciate their intentions and I did find it valuable. But from my perspective, often the wrong questions. So this is me, Angelo Robles, deconstructing the recent Bank of America family office study. Now, they asked all the efficiency questions. But the problem that I have in my role in loving everything about the single family office community and really focused on project management and looking forward, it kind of missed the effectiveness questions. So I'm going to start with what I call, and I actually have it also printed out here in front of me, the destroying the premise. So Bank of America surveyed a good number, 335 family office decision makers. And again, like I said, they asked very good efficiency questions. Now, you also want to get the families to respond. I get it. But I think they did miss out, as everyone does, on the effectiveness questions, not because the data is bad, but because they're measuring the wrong things. The late and very great Peter Drucker taught us that efficiency is doing things right, but effectiveness is doing the right things. There's a very, very big difference. And I think the study effectively, like I said, measures efficiency, but like, for instance, how many accounts do you have? What's your allocation? How many employees? Sure, valuable, but nobody is asked the questions that truly, truly matter. Perhaps for a variety of reasons, the response rates would be much, much lower. I get it. Probably takes more of an in person. I'll start. Should the family office exist at all? And no, not a rhetorical question. According to the study, 40% of family offices admit they could benefit from outsourcing the things they're doing in house. 76% of them are already outsourcing their tax services. 75%, that's correct, are outsourcing their technology. So they're managing complexity they shouldn't own. This gets deeper. Again, I got my cup of tea here. It's going to be a long one. So let me ask a question. And this is one, and I know it doesn't sound relevant to the single family office community. It actually is. What business are you in? Because if you're just aggregating outsourced services and paying bills, from my perspective, you're not really a family office. You're kind of more of an expensive answering service. And maybe for some families, those services aggregating a collage of outside resources, but no real strategic thinking or excellence, and then just simply providing that back, like I guess to some, that may be a family office. But again, you're talking to the beloved one of the industry here. Section 1, what I'm going to call it, the practice management crisis. And oh, it's a crisis. So here's what the study maybe even accidentally revealed. Family offices have zero idea what they're actually producing. Stay with me. I'm going to just flip a page here in the report, get my mind going a little bit. 33% manage 50 or more bank accounts. 41% manage 50 or more investment accounts. 35% manage 100 plus payments per month. And like, they think that's their job, but stay with me. The late, great Peter Drucker would ask, what is the family office's output? Not activity, they're very different, but your output. Because managing 50 accounts, it's admin, it's not output. And we're going to get to more effective and efficient ways to do that shortly. So managing 50 accounts, 100 accounts, 150 accounts is not output. It's motion. Paying 100 bills is not value creation. It's admin. So here's, and I know some of you are going to disagree with me on this, and I know by nature I'm somewhat bombastic and confrontational. I can't help it. So here's the practice management question that I don't think anyone in the study asked. Maybe I missed it. If we eliminated this family office tomorrow, what would the family actually lose? Like, I've done consulting assignments where, yeah, it's that blunt. Like, you just go in with a question like that. Not what would become inconvenient. There is a difference. What would become, or what would be irreplaceable? For most of these family offices, really the honest answer is not much. The banks would still execute, tax firms would still file, and the investment advisors would, well, still advise. The family office is a coordinator. And for some, that may have a purpose. But again, I'm going to get to more effective and way more efficient ways to do that. So that family office is a coordinator, not a creator. And coordination, now here we go, is the first thing that AI commoditizes. And there's one thing in the practice management. One thing in the family office I do know in today's world, because I live and breathe it, feels like 168 hours a week, that is right now AI implementation. So here's the real question. If your family office is your family office, and I know you're going to think this doesn't quite apply to an SFO, but stay with me. Is your family office a profit center or a cost center pretending to be strategic? Because the study shows, a lot of family offices were a part of it, that family offices are spending millions to do things that could be, well, I'm going to go with outsourced for less, could definitely be automated with AI, don't require deep strategic thinking or institutional value, and add latency instead of value. That is not effectiveness. That's organizational vanity. So my section 2, deadly questions. We're going to go a little deep here. And I've done this before with my members and consulting assignments. 5 questions to diagnose kind of organizational health. And what I did was I ran this filter. I had a busy last 6 hours. I ran this filter on the Bank of America data. So kind of the question 1, what is our mission? The study says that 40% of family offices were created to collectively oversee wealth. That's not a mission. That's tautology, sure. We exist to do the thing we do. Now, again, hearkening my best Peter Drucker, a mission must define contribution, not function. The families that survive transitions aren't the ones, this kind of has been proven, aren't the ones who oversee wealth. They're the ones who answer, what is this wealth for? And here's also what the study revealed. Only 7% of family offices were created to support a specific mission, a legacy, or even philanthropy. The other 93% exist really kind of more so for oversight. Again, is that really intent? Is that purpose? Is that mission? That's paperwork with a budget, is what it is. The question 2, who is our customer? Hold on. Most family offices would say a family. Well, it does depend, but they might be wrong because the principals are not customers. They're really more shareholders. Think about it. Depending on the family, the actual customer is the next generation's ability to deploy capital and legacy effectively. Maybe a little bit more directly, it's whoever needs to be served within the family. So in my example, though, you may not be serving today's principals. You're really serving a 40, a 50, 100-year continuity of decision-making capability. That's the key there. And this study shows that 73% of family offices with less involved principals expect the next generation to change the mission entirely. They are 100% correct. That means, could I argue that the family office failed really its actual customer in my example? Because if generation 2, my example, doesn't believe in what you've built, you didn't really build an institution. You didn't focus on intent and purpose and continuity. You built a temp agency effectively with a trust structure. I don't mean to be harsh, but you know what? Sometimes these families, like, they need this. Question 3, what does the customer, in this case, value? So the study asked these family offices what they do in-house. That's going to show what they value. 72% handle household management. 71% handle bill pay. 66%, it stated, handle financial planning. And I guarantee you, do you think the next generation, they don't value probably any of that? What do my experience? It does vary. Every family's different. What do they value? Strategic optionality in an ever increasing fractured world. When I discuss AI, they get it more so than the elders. Sovereign infrastructure where you're not leaking your IP. Access to deals you can't get elsewhere. Education that could help to make them through capacity and capability anti-fragile. But you're spending money and budget on bill pay and household management. That's not real customer value. Disagree with me, it's okay. That's inherited workflow. So question 4, and you do need to ask this, what are the results? How are they measured? Qualitative, quantifiable? So the study measures inputs, how many accounts, how many employees, how much AUM. But if you can't measure the output, you don't have a discipline. You really have more of what I would loosely call, how about hope? So what is the output of a family office? Meant to be kind of a broad, open-ended question, by the way. What is it? Here's a framework that I challenge in a simplified form family offices to measure. 1, sovereign optionality score. If your primary jurisdiction, country, etc., became hostile, challenged tomorrow, how many days until the family is operational elsewhere with full access to its capital and resources? What are the structures? IP security score. What percentage of your strategic decision-making goes through third-party platforms that train openly on your data? Next generation capability score. Can the next generation execute 80% of critical decisions without you? Or are they waiting for the patriarch, matriarch, whoever, kind of so they could to pass, so they could simply liquidate. And very important is an anti-fragility score. I mentioned before about capacity and capability. I'm not going to have the time to go into that tonight, but a little bit more simplified variation. Which assets in your portfolio almost get stronger through systemic shocks? So there's lots that we could dive into with that. That's a very, very light perspective, but important as a framework. The study doesn't measure really any of this because they're measuring activity and not results. So question 5, like, how about, it's a real complex one. What is our plan? Like, as simple as that. Plans are only good intentions unless they immediately kind of degenerate into quote unquote hard work. The study says 40% of family offices have a robust, well-documented succession plan. 40%. 73% of family offices with less involved principals expect the next generation, like I mentioned earlier, to really actually change everything. That's not a plan, that's a document. And how about the executives that need to be held to a higher standard, that want to be coached and led, want to make a proper income and bonuses, and want to have a future that's more than just a patriarch or a matriarch passing on, whatever reason? Most family offices don't make it after 10 years. So a plan could include governance protocols, how decisions are made that survive the founder, decision-making frameworks that scale across generations. How about hard metrics for family member capability development? I've been hinting at that one quite a bit. And trigger events and contingency protocols. Instead, they got a directive in the will. Again, like that's hope. That's not planning. What I'll call section 3, the AI practice management revolution. And yes, this is important in this discussion. So now let's talk about kind of what the study, I could argue, may be completely missed. They did ask, have you used AI to influence investment strategies? A little narrow, but a good start. 57%, more than I would have thought, said yes. Most of them used it to research companies. That's really not AI transformation. That's Google with a chat bot. You have to understand the platforms, understand how to best prompt, how to follow up, how to make them battle and compete. There's nuances to this that I never go into a family office, even one that's relatively tech fluid, and they got it. They don't. So maybe here's what they could have asked. What organizational functions have you eliminated because AI made them obsolete? If AI can do it faster, cheaper, and more accurately than your team, and you're still paying people to do it, you may be choosing inefficiency. Now, I would rather work with your existing team. They could do more, better, and faster by implementing relatively pretty effectively. I do it all the time, AI. So maybe what I would teach family offices is AI, it can, yeah, sure, it can augment the current family office, but in many ways, it makes how you're doing it currently, relatively in today's world even, let alone a year from now, obsolete. The study shows family offices use an average of 2 wealth management platforms, and their number one complaint was platform integration. Again, that's really a practice management failure. You don't need, per se, better integration. You need to ask, why do we have platforms that kind of don't talk to each other? And 2, that maybe 3, 4, 5 and multiple. I mentioned how many bank and investments accounts a lot of the families have. So you're hiring vendors for features, not for architecture. That's bad. You built a technology stack kind of like you built often the family office by accretion, not really by design. So more of integrating in the reality of how the world is going. And me going out to Silicon Valley and knowing some interesting people and what they're doing in their family office, and even what I'm seeing in London and other parts of the world, they're getting better. So here's more of an AI native approach. Every function in your family office should answer kind of one question to kind of review. Can AI and an integrated AI agent or agents do it autonomously 24/7, 168 hours a week? Bill payment, sure. Capital calls, yes. Portfolio rebalancing, usually. Tax optimization, scenario planning, strategic modeling, liquid forecasting, even governance documents, kind of yes and yes and yes. Yet the study shows that 76% of family offices think automation is important for cash forecasting, and it is, but only a fraction have actually automated it. Then you kind of have to begin, I would ask, why? Probably because they're stuck, and from my experiences, in an efficiency trap. We do this process really well with our current team, I'll hear. Efficiency is the enemy when the task itself is wrong. You've optimized a process that probably shouldn't even exist. Oh, there's so much more I could do on that one, but it's getting a little late. You've optimized. There is another topic I did want to talk about within this. I heard Eric Schmidt, who I'm a huge fan of. I heard him on a podcast, and he talked about killing the glue. So his core insight destroys kind of much of even in the Bank of America study that celebrates. And I know we'll blame Eric Schmidt, not Angelo, on this one. Eric Schmidt calls them glue people. Nice, well-meaning people whose job is to facilitate communication between, two or more people. He says, it's kind of been my experience. It's just, I don't know, politically incorrect to say. He says they're the primary cause of organizational dysfunction. And many family offices are built on the so-called perspective of glue. The study specifically showed here that 62% of the offices have actually 10 or more employees. 25%, a good number, have 30 or more. I'd really want to understand what they're doing, the leadership, the culture, the coordination, the managing of relationships, because interfacing between the family and the advisors, is that kind of the glue? And I know that's what Eric Schmidt meant. So his rule, and I'm not saying I'm perfectly on board, but it's a good thought exercise. If their primary function is process management, not outcome production, they're glue. That's not necessarily good. Maybe for one or two. And I think, and I see it too, that family offices are drowning in it. You got the chief of staff who manages, I'll simplify it, the principal's calendar and schedule. Relationship managers, and you'll see those even in SFOs who interface with external advisors. Project managers even who coordinate initiatives. Go back and listen to my interview the prior summer with Nathan Troutman. The man goes into these gigantic 300 to 400 plus employee family offices, and like the worst people to deal with are going to be the HR department, but maybe another subject for a different time. None of them produce output from what I described. They manage people who maybe produce output, and every layer of glue adds latency. It adds slowness in communication, bureaucracy, additional systems, additional layers. That is not going to work in this world moving forward. The study shows that 79% of family offices say having family members in the office provides a direct line to the family's goals. But 61%, maybe honestly, It depends. Say it complicates things. You know why? Because probably you hired glue to manage the family members. Instead of giving them more direct access to the work, you gave them the handlers. That's not governance. That really is more insulation. And that insulation, looking what I spoke about earlier, my Detroit paradox, what killed Detroit and Japan crushed it. That was a part of it. And by the way, superstars are underrated. And a team of Spartans, real Spartans, could beat a gigantic army. So people are still, for now, the number one aspect determining of a successful family office. Now, Eric has something called a rule of 10. No initiative gets more than 10 people, period. If you need 12 people, in his example, to make an investment decision, you don't really have a decision-making process. You have a committee designed to avoid accountability. I pretty much agree. Back to what I said about direct access. The principal should be able to reach any subject matter expert in one step. If your, whatever, name an analyst can't get on your calendar without going through 3 people, you don't have it a truly efficient, let alone more importantly, effective family office. You have a bureaucracy that happens to be privately held. And some of these in my first book, which is now woefully dated, was called Effective Family Office. Now, certain principles around governance, practice management, and other things, structure still apply, but that's why I got a slew of new books coming out early in 2026, mainly the 850 questions and checklist and the Family Office Playbook. So he also talks about, meaning Eric Schmidt, coach, don't command. Your job isn't to make all decisions. It's to develop successful decision makers. The study shows that 41% of family offices with fully involved principals start onboarding the next generation early. But what are they onboarding them into? If they're learning to only, how can I state this? Follow the process, you're really training more for compliance. If they're learning to question, like a young Angelo, every assumption, well, you'll probably get fired. But besides that, if you're learning to question every assumption, you're among the right process for training leadership. You need a unifying morality and a culture in the family office, an understanding of intent and purpose, a mission and a vision, excellent leadership, and pay people incredibly well. The CEO's main job in larger family offices is really the bottleneck, removing bottlenecks. They're almost always, as Drucker would say, at the top of the bottle. If the principal is making every decision, the family office stops kind of at the principal's capacity. Your job is to build an organization that maybe makes better decisions than you would make alone. That requires probably kind of killing the glue that Schmidt talks about, not hiring more of it. Section 5, the real questions family offices should, in my humble opinion, should be asking. Question 1, if we rebuilt this family office from scratch today, what would we build? Not what would we keep? I emphasize what would we build? Because the family offices in this studies probably, there's always going to be exceptions, weren't designed, they were more accumulated. They hired someone to pay bills, hired someone to manage the bill payer, hired someone to report on the bill paying. Now, yes, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you get the big picture of it. The last thing you need is bureaucracy. You need to go through your family office with hardcore, less so benchmarking and best practices, a hell of a lot of first principles. And again, superstars, incredibly talented people, they're underhyped and underpaid. So Peter Drucker actually also did state, if you weren't already doing it, would you start? A great question to ask. Kind of for most of these family offices, the honest answer, may end up being no. Question 2, what are we doing that we alone can do? So 76% in the Bank of America research survey, and I do appreciate it and was valuable to me. 76%, if anything, it gave me content. 76% outsource tax services. Good. Because tax compliance maybe isn't a core competency. But then look at what they're keeping in-house. Again, here it is. 72% handle household management, 71% do bill pay, 44% handle accounting. These are commodity functions. You may argue you want to keep them internal for privacy. We could debate that. They require zero institutional knowledge. You could train, and here's where it gets interesting in today's world, AI and an AI agent to do them, honestly, within days. Yet you're paying what? 6-figure salaries. You talk about efficiencies, you're actually not even efficient, let alone as effective as you could be. You're wickedly inefficient. If someone outside the family could do it as well, then maybe you shouldn't be doing it. On the other hand, we could go back to the benefits of a single family office of privacy, control, and customization. But do you have the capability of excellence internally? Do you have the bandwidth? Or do you have to add more talent or use technology and resources the way that I'm describing? The core competency could be strategic capital deployed that the family can't get elsewhere, sovereign infrastructure that commercial providers can't offer, next generation education that shapes how they think, not just kind of what they know, and network access and geopolitical positioning. Everything else, maybe you could automate or, God forbid, selectively outsource. Again, part of it does come back to not even just privacy, customization, and control, but speed. So sometimes, damn it, you'll just pay more money for these sources internally, even when they're maybe not as good, because it's private and maybe you get it 24/7. Question 3, are we organized around our strengths or history? The study shows 85% of family offices still have family businesses generating income. 48% share employees with the business. Only 14% see the family business as their best investment opportunity. That's like organizational craziness, I could state. Like, you're structured around the business, but you don't believe in it. Like, that's probably where the greatest arbitrage and gains are going to come. So what business are you really in? Are you an operating company, family office? Are you a capital allocating family office? Because those require kind of completely different architectures. And honestly, most family offices are not as disciplined, structured, as regimented as they could be. They're trying to do both or multiple of what I described, which means they're likely, I could be wrong, going to be mediocrity at both. Question 4, what would have to happen for us thinking internally as the family office to be obsolete? Now, that is a pretty tough existential question. And in some ways, the study kind of showed the answer. AI commoditizes investment research. 87%, and trust me, a lot of them don't really know that much, think that AI can improve returns, and they would be 100% correct. Cybersecurity becomes mission critical. 32%, about 1 in 3 in the study, have already been breached. Those numbers are going to go way up, and a lot of them aren't just reporting it. Geopolitical fragmentation. When I look at the research and studies in my work, geopolitical concerns, number 1, macroeconomics, number 2, inflation, kind of number 3. So geopolitical fragmentation requires sovereign infrastructure. Listen to what I did earlier today at about 12:30. It was a pretty long one, about an hour. And a lot of my work on sovereign risk and disaster preparedness coming up, at least for my members. Next generation they expect tech native operations, and 76% expect increased AI use, and they are correct to feel that way. In other words, the traditional family office model is becoming obsolete, but you're still optimizing it, and that's the efficiency trap. You may be getting better at something that doesn't matter as much. Maybe that's a good way to think of it. Question 5. What are we prepared to abandon? That's one of my favorites. Peter Drucker said the greatest danger in times of turbulence is really not the turbulence itself, but acting with yesterday's logic. This study shows family offices, well, doing exactly that. 67% call themselves conservative while the world is fracturing. 42% avoid debt while sitting on liquid assets. 70% handle next generation in-house, meaning next generation education, while admitting they don't even know how to teach, especially the future. And again, these are all also consulting assignments and work that I've done with my members. I've been doing this a long time, and I've had to revamp, adapt multiple different times because the world that I know from in this industry 20 years ago and how things work is totally different now. But these people I'm describing here, they're not adapting, they're more defending. And defense, inevitably in time, is how you're going to lose. Heading kind of to the home stretch, I got a section 6, the sovereign architecture alternative. So what does AI native sovereign family office look like? Kind of a layer one, actually, in some ways, is a radical simplification. And go back to my interview the prior summer, as I mentioned, with Nathan Troutman and his work with some of the most iconic families on earth. Most family offices, there are exceptions, probably don't need dozens and dozens of employees. They may need a more intimate number coordinated with AI and multiple AI agents. This is the future, whether you like it or not. Imagine humans that maybe one is the architect designing the family's really big picture strategic thinking, the executor, the allocator making capital deployment decisions on the frontier, the operator running the AI native processes and tools needed to help support the people in the family office and the family, the educator teaching capacity and capability to the rising generation in the family. Some would say a chief learning officer. I'm down with that. The connector maintains relationships and network access, kind of underrated, but one person to that, coordinated within the structure of a team, eliminating bureaucracy and the CEO's role besides strategic thinking and big decisions should come to them is basically, again, hire incredible people. Here's what incredible family offices do. I'll keep it really simple, and I could probably drop the mic. They hire brilliantly. How about that? Everything else replaced. AI agents for bill pay, accounting, reporting, outsource specialists for tax, legal, compliance, technology that you begin to own, that you don't share with other platforms. Others could sneak in on it. It gets leaked to the cloud. It's training the system. Like, you got to wake up to these things. A layer 2, more of a purpose architecture. Don't forget, culture eats strategy for breakfast. But culture does require mission clarity. The study showed that only 7% of family offices were founded with a clear mission beyond quote unquote wealth preservation. That's why 73% of family offices expect, as I said earlier, the next generation to change everything. Then what's going to happen to you and your job in a family office or advising a family office? This is what I'm trying to pound home. So there are alternatives. Every family's different. And my opinions on certain things here may vary and change in the coming weeks and months. So the family office needs more of a constitutional document that answers, why do we exist? And no, not just to preserve wealth. That's a means, not an end. What are we building? I don't know, a renewable energy portfolio, a media empire, a philanthropic dynasty. It's fine. Just understand what that goal, what that North Star is. Who are we serving? I don't know. The elders, this generation, a whole bunch of people. How are we identifying qualitatively and quantitatively? Are we doing a good job? What are the goals? Is there goals clarity? What will we never compromise on values? I don't know, maybe it's geography, industries, ethics. When do we sunset? Yeah, that's a weird one for SFOs. Under what conditions does the family office actually close? What's even a succession plan? If you can't define that, you may have created an immortal bureaucracy. And bureaucracies, don't forget, optimize for their own survival, not the mission. Layer 3, sovereign infrastructure. The study does show that 2/3 of family offices worry about AI threatening privacy. And I said 32%, about a third admitted, meaning there's way more, have been breached. And that's going to increase radically. We're going to do a lot on that for my members and at my programs in 2026. Only 53% feel knowledgeable about cyber threats. It should probably be a hell of a lot less. I don't think you're that knowledgeable about the cyber threats, especially what's coming enhanced by AI, deepfakes, and inevitably quantum. We'll save that for a different time. Now, again, as I said, they're still using commercial platforms. Imagine using an LLM. We'll pick on ChatGPT, it's a public platform. You're putting in your investment intellect, your questions, and it's feeding a system that bleeds your IP in the cloud. You're storing family data in systems you don't control. That's not a family office. That's a data farm for big tech. When you own gold, do you want to physically own it and store it and take responsibility and have no counterparty risk? Or do you, maybe you do just want to have it in an ETF. That's fine. They're two totally different things and serve a quasi-different purpose. So a sovereign alternative has more closed loop AI systems, your models, your data, your infrastructure. Multi-LLM optimization, sure, competition between the models to avoid single point bias, how to make them battle, and when then to go more private and maybe a little more open in public. Zero trust architecture. Every access request is authenticated in real time. Geographic redundancy, critical systems replicated across multiple jurisdictions. Air-gapped operations, the most sensitive decisions. Never touching the internet. No, it's not paranoia. It's really good practice management. And the study does show when you get breached, 40% of those that have been breached and admitted it have moderate to extreme impact. That means most family offices are one phishing email away from catastrophic failure. Is this risk management? Or is it negligence effectively with a budget? And again, there's really smart bad guys and gals out there that are going to leverage AI 100 times more than you know. And again, new advancements, quantum and all that. This is a very, very dangerous time. In closing, kind of an ultimatum. Peter Drucker taught us that every organization, as I stated earlier, must answer one important question. If we did not already exist, would we, or maybe he said, would we create ourselves today? Maybe I'll be a little nicer and say how we and what would we do different. For most family offices in the study, the honest answer to Peter's question was probably no. They exist because they already exist. They have whatever 33 employees or whatever it is, 7 or 9. In my example of 30 employees, because they hired 29 before they may have realized that they needed 5. They manage 50, 100 plus accounts because nobody ever asked if they should, consolidate that. They pay often millions in inefficiencies and overhead because that's what wealth does. It creates complexity that often justifies itself. And the so-called experts add to that level of complexity to justify their purpose and their meaning and their pockets on your behalf. So here's what's coming. The next generation isn't going to be asking, how do we make this more efficient? I'd like to hope they're too smart for that. They're going to ask, why does this exist exactly? And if the answer is simply to preserve wealth, I don't think that's going to get it done. They may even say, sell it all, put it in an index fund, fire everyone, let's save millions of dollars, simplify my life, be liquid, and give me my share. I'm not saying I approve of that. I am the most biggest advocate in the world for the single family office, but we got to do better. Now, again, preservation itself is not really a purpose. The families that survive this transition are the ones that can answer, what are we building that matters more than the wealth itself? Not what are we preserving? The emphasis of what I said is what are we building? And again, I went back to understanding intent and purpose, having a mission, having a vision, understanding the goals, having some level of systems and standard operating procedures, having incredible people that are well paid in the family office, and augmenting it with incredible technology and the advancements in AI and AI agents. And please, as the CEO, remove the bottlenecks from your people so they could do an incredible job. If you can't answer that, you don't have a family office, you have more of a museum, an expensive hobby that's probably about to get liquidated and outdated. The Bank of America study, which was valuable for me, but it measures activity, and I'm asking you to measure purpose. They measured, which was valuable, how many accounts you have. I'm asking what you're using them like to build. They asked if you've tried AI. I'm asking if you eliminated what you could eliminate and become more effective and efficient utilizing AI. And right now, my God, 3 years from now, like, you better get on it now. You're going to do more, better, and faster, effectively, immediately, within 30 days. If you attended my masterclass, were a member, asked me questions, or a consulting assignment. Because the question really isn't whether AI can help your family office, though there's no doubt about that. The question is whether AI makes your traditional family office somewhat obsolete. And for many, I'm not even going to say most, for many, the answer is yes. But there's a chance you could build, you could rebuild, starting actually for what I said even a minute ago. I left out maybe the most important part. Start with first principles. Then build around intent and purpose with sovereign infrastructure, and maybe radical, like I hinted at earlier, simplification. And no, it's not really a consulting engagement. It's more of existential surgery. Man, I didn't really expect to be doing this tonight. I almost never do 2 lives in one day. And I put a lot of energy and time into the one I did earlier, which was really, really deep and intense. Watch it on LinkedIn, X, or YouTube if you don't get too bored. And something you're just not hearing about in the family office world that is going to segue into one of the big focus of mine in 2026 with sovereign risk and disaster preparedness for family offices. As I more travel the world and speak and work and meet members and consult the families in Europe, Mexico, LATAM, and got some interesting things coming up in the Middle East, I'm excited. It's an interesting time. But I read that report, Bank of America, and again, a good job. I did find it valuable. I'm just a prickly kind of guy, and I just think differently and wanted to ask a different twist and perspective, an addition to it. But I do appreciate Bank of America. Great job overall. So again, I hope you enjoyed it. I know some of you may felt I was a little critical, a little difficult. Come on, imagine what my family at Thanksgiving thinks of me. They shove me in a corner and tell me not to talk about politics, economics, investing, or AI. Pretty much true. Well, this was great. I don't know if I'm going to do something live tomorrow, meaning Thursday. I do have a couple of topics in November that I kind of wrote out and fleshed out. We'll see if I'm kind of feeling it. I do got some guests upcoming in the coming week or two. I hope you have a chance to enjoy it. And again, I do love the single family office community. I just think there's so much room for improvement. And I'm just not seeing where a lot of you are getting it elsewhere. A lot of the areas around structuring, understanding geopolitical risk, macro investing, definitely AI, the sovereign things I'm talking about. Like, I'm just not seeing a lot of those conversations. And I have some wonderful people that I know within the industry. And some of them reach out and say, like, God, the things you talk about, we're kind of on board, but we just can't really mention or talk about those things. So give it to me. Let me be the bad person within the industry, so to speak, an industry that I do love. And I appreciate all of you that are watching or listening live or watch this on recording. I may distribute this one out to a larger segment in one of my databases. And again, lots going on. I've been talking about it a lot this week. I'm going to wrap up the year very strong. I have a program in Miami in January, just weeks away, 5 days in Palm Beach, actually the week of March 16th. That's going to be a lot of fun. And multiple AI, sovereign risk, and creating a top 1%, 3 different master classes, maybe 2 out of the 3 digital downloadable. Members get it no cost, others have to pay. But I love to do these with my dream team in person. So those are the most valuable. And again, members get it all. They get it all inclusive, including my most proprietary content, and really wanting to solve problems, to get the difficult questions, to deal with the challenging. So you could go to angelorobles.com. You could learn more. It's easy to become a member, be a part of my private intelligence and strategy community. Yeah, it's not cheap, but you're part of an incredible community, incredible programming, peers, thought leaders, and unique content that I just know that no one is providing and living through within the family office community. There's some comments came in. Efficiency is a process. Effectiveness is an objective. If you're truly efficient, you are also effective by default. I may disagree, but actually nothing I love better than, one, me learning from you and others, and maybe having strong opinions but weakly held. We all get caught in echo chambers. We all fall prey to anchoring. And as someone who does active debates on geopolitical and other issues, I try to fight that so much. So Juan, share more. I want to learn. DM me, email me, share content, open up my mind to something that maybe I'm a little closed on. And I appreciate that. I appreciate all of you that comment, even some of the crazy comments that come in. YouTube is interesting. It's a little different between the comments from LinkedIn and the comments from YouTube. But I do love you all on YouTube. Very appreciated. So again, I don't mean to criticize the Bank of America study. I appreciate they do it. I have it. I read it. It's a resource of mine. It provides value to me and helps me clarify the work that I do as a membership organization, hosting masterclasses and consulting. I'm just Angelo being Angelo. I look at things a little differently. I'm extremely first principles and practice management focused. And I'm just incredibly active, as you all know, in the world of AI. And I just see it already, let alone 6 months, 18 months, 3 years from now, doing incredible things, literally doing incredible things at the moment. Do more, better and faster, flat out, period. Go to angelorobles.com and learn more. Everyone, appreciate your time. Have a wonderful evening. If you're watching it live, you can all reach out to me, also email at angelo@angelorobles.com. A little bit unique tonight, a little bit of fire and passion. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.